G'day folks, and welcome to Gormo's Shed. Well, this week we're looking at a homemade soldering station, if you like, and I thought, what can I use? Because there are commercial soldering stations available, and they're a reasonable price, I would imagine. There's also little stands available to hold your soldering iron while you're working, you know, with the coiled spring setup. I had one of those from one of those famous European grocer stores. But I found the actual stand was too light in weight. It's too easy to upset the apple cart. You know, one knock with your hand and you knock over the soldering iron. And with model railways, sometimes you finish up, as in my case, on the floor underneath the board. You've got a hot soldering iron on the floor and you're trying to do something up underneath the board. Well, when you're in that situation, you need something, a stand for the soldering iron that's not going to move. You need to know where that soldering iron is, because sometimes you're looking away from it and you could burn yourself, all that sort of thing, and you don't want it to tip over as well. So I thought, how can I get around this? And I've got a bit of particle board, which is out of a cabinet, which is approximately 480mm by around 600, something like that, which is a good sized board. And I thought, well, I can make myself a sort of a workstation on there. I can make a coil spring for the soldering iron. I can fit a power board to it, so I can just plug the iron in, and there's no wiring involved. It's just a simple commercial power board, and maybe a light. And I'm in business. And then, I mean, I've got a surface that's basically disposable. If I burn too many blooming holes in it, I can always build another one. So it's a surface that is expendable, I suppose. But anyway, I think they're the fundamental features: that it's stable, it doesn't tip over. It's the sort of thing you can just pick up and clip onto your workbench, or clamp onto your workbench. You can put it on the floor, you don't have to worry about it. That's what we want. So I'll show you what I'm going to do. Right, I've got my board set up here in my Black & Decker workmate for a bit of fine tuning on this thing. I've got some dowels sticking out the side here. I'm going to cut those off. The board is laminated. It's got a vinyl edge there, which is nice, but the other edges are sharp, so I'm just going to file those down and round the corners so that the whole thing, wherever you touch it, is smooth to the touch. So that'll take a little while to get that all organised, so I'll get the board all set up. Okay folks, that's all set to go now, so we've just got to work out how we're going to put all this stuff together. Okay folks, well I guess the hardest part to make is the coil spring side of things for the to hold the soldering iron. So what I thought I'd do is I've got a bit of conduit here, electrical conduit, and I thought I'd use that as a former, and I've got a piece of wire here which is X wire coat hanger. So I'll just put that into the end beside the conduit there. Right, here we go. Now it's still moving. Honestly, this never works when you want it to, does it? Anyway, we're going, we're moving, so we'll just wind this around the former. And this may look a bit small to start with, but I'm pretty sure it's going to spring open a bit. Certainly hope it does. And we'll leave it about 10mm between the turns here, just to keep it nice and open. Because the idea of putting the soldering iron in this spring setup is to allow the iron to stay hot, but the heat to be able to get away from this device here that's holding it, this coil spring. Now we're going to have to get a bit creative on the top there, because we don't want any sharp edges on the top. Okay, let's see how that looks. Just release that, and yeah, that's not bad. I'll have to try my iron in there and see what it looks like, and I'll have to trim a bit off the top here. Okay folks, we've finished up with something a bit like that. I'm just holding the end there, so I've got plenty of room for the iron, and I think that'll work out okay. Okay folks, I'm going to drill a hole through the board now for the wire for the soldering iron holder, the coil spring there. I'm going to do it scientifically, and I'll sort of take a careful measurement and say probably about there. Because I'm right-handed, I'll have it on the right-hand side. I may even move it a little further over, I think, to there, because I'm going to have the board facing away from me that way. So this is the front of the board I'll be working on. This allows, if I put this on a bench, if I have it long like this, I can have it sticking out from the bench, which might allow me to move around different sides of it as well. So anyway, here we go. So we'll just drill a hole through. This is pretty much exactly the same size as the wire. Now I've also put a right angle bend in the wire here, so that this will sit on the top of the board, and this would allow it to turn. But when I push this part through the board, I think I'll bend it over at a right angle and try and smash it into the back of the board, so that the thing doesn't turn around all the time. Either that or nail it down or something like that. Right folks, I've pushed it through the board and I've bent it over. Probably the most practical solution is just to put a couple of nails down the side of it here and just bend them over it so it won't move. Right, that's got that sorted out, so I'll just put a bit of tape over that. I've got some nice wide black electrical tape here, and I can get it unstuck from the roll. So we'll just whack that. Geez, you could tie up the Queen Mary with this stuff. Okay, we'll put that over there and just trim it off. There we go. Now we should try the iron in that. Okay, that'll do fine, I think. Now I've got this power board here folks, which I think is probably best located up the back of the board, and it's the old system of a couple of screws screwed into the board, and then it's like a keyhole sort of setup where you can fix it down. So we'll have to work that out and get the appropriate screws in the correct positions and fix that onto the board. It's nice and tight. Yep. Okay, that's got it. That's our power board. Now another thing I'd like to have on this board is a light. So I've got one of these old bedside lamps. It's got a new sort of, well, newish fluoro tube in it, and I thought I'd put a block on here. So it's got a clip sort of system, and I thought I'd put a block over on this corner so that I can have light to work on whatever I'm doing, and it gets it out of the way. It can even be sort of bent up like that out of the way. So I'll put a block over here to support this. Now all I've got for my block folks is this piece of wood here, which is 90 by 35 by about 190. Piece of pine that's come out of a bed frame, so still usable bit of timber though, so that'll do nicely for a block. The light can clamp over the top of that. I could actually put a screw through the clamp to keep it there permanently if I wanted, or you could just have it so that the lamp can be removed. Maybe that would be better for storage. But now I'll just use a quick clamp to hold the block in place while I screw this, put the first screw in for this block. And then all we need to do is put the second screw in. The lamp just clamps on there and it can move around like that, whatever. In business there. Now the only other thing that I like to do when I'm soldering is, some people wipe the iron on a piece of cloth, piece of sponge, but I used to do it here on my workbench, and I used to wipe the iron on the wire brush that's on the bench grinder. So I thought, I've got this old barbecue brush, I might sort of cut the brush part off that and just screw it onto the board. Right, so I've cut the handle off the brush, and I've also bent this silver bit over at a right angle, and I'll be able to just put this part over the side of the board and just put a couple of screws through it, and that'll hold it in place. Right. Okay folks, this is how it's turned out. You can see that it extends out from my normal workbench where I sit and do some of my fine work, but it pulls me out away from the bench. The soldering iron is secure here. It won't go anywhere, and I've got the little brush here to clean it up, which is good. We have the light here to aid with work, and I've got the power board at the back there. The light illuminates the area quite well, and the thing is, as I was saying, I'll show you what this is like on the floor. Now folks, this is where it comes into its own, because you've got the board here, you've got the iron secured in the little coil, and you're working under your board, your layout board. What you can do with a light like this is just turn it up the other way so that it's illuminated up under where you want to work. You can see what you're doing, and you don't have to worry about this iron tipping over onto the floor, carpet in this case, and you're not relying on torches and battery power and all that sort of thing. Yeah, it's a secure, stable platform. So there you go. That's how it works. Just thought of it this afternoon. Okay, cheers, Gormo.